I'm counsel to the former Maldives President Nasheed, who's now a political prisoner in his country, serving a 13-year sentence for alleged terrorism. And I'd like to thank Amnesty for holding an event today on unfair trials, because I think it's a very important juncture to examine the abuses being committed by the judiciary in the Maldives at the moment. I've just returned from the Maldives a couple of days ago, and I read the judgment and all the paperwork, and it became clear very quickly to me that we were dealing with a show trial, sham proceedings really, where you had judges who were witnesses for the prosecution, you had the defendant not being able to call any witnesses in the trial, and it was clearly a politicized way to get him out of the scene and not able to run in the presidential elections in 2018. And the more I read about him, I found him to be an inspirational figure too. He was trying to bring human rights and democracy to the Maldives, and when he ran in 2008, he became the first ever democratically elected leader of the Maldives, and he brought attention to the plight of his people as a people where literally the islands are sinking because of rising sea levels. And he's also someone who became known as the Mandela of the Maldives because he's a human rights activist, and before he was president, as you know, he was a journalist and he was an opposition figure, and he paid a price for that. He was arrested more than 20 times in his country. He was tortured in prison and subjected to solitary confinement. I was just in Male last week and I met with civil society. They told me, we're trying to bring attention to human rights abuses, including abuses by the judiciary, and we get death threats, we get our offices ransacked. President Nasheed is not the only one who's in prison. Actually, there are people who came out in protest of the politicized trial, who then themselves were arrested when they tried to protest in his favor. Today in the Maldives, every single leader of an opposition party is either in prison or facing charges and intimidation by the government, and that's a very dangerous situation.
Thank you very much, Amal, for that very detailed and rich overview, not just of President Nasheed's situation, but the situation in the Maldives generally as pertains to.
People shouldn't feel disenfranchised. I think there is a lot that people can do. We as lawyers rely on governments at the international level to exercise pressure when a government's not complying with their international legal obligations. As you know, that's something Amnesty does as part of its core mandate. So I think people can write to their governments if they feel that their government is not doing enough, and there can also be pressure brought to bear on the Maldivian government directly. Some people are choosing not to travel there until the human rights situation improves, and people will find their own ways to protest or try and influence things, but there's no need to stand silent on the sidelines. There's definitely a lot that can be done.